Chapter 22 Canzí and Cara. Canzí looked up nervously at the guard beside her. She had managed to find Carly, or, at least, its guards. When he had asked who she was and why she was there, she had managed to stammer out that her name was Canzí, and that Vericica had told her this was where Cara and her family were staying. Well, she had said Anyasica first, turned a shade of red more vibrant than Garento's hair, cycled through several names for Iveria, been called a rude name, briefly wished she could disappear, and then finally called her Vericica. Realizing this, he had told the other guard to find Cara. After a few minutes, he returned with her. She was carrying Ivelosso, and looked curious but tired. She smiled when she saw Canzí, who sighed with relief. "Good morning, Canzí," she said. "So this is what you look like in the sun." She looked much better than when Canzí had last seen her. Her hair was neat, completely back under her wimple, and she was wearing a simple white blouse and green skirt rather than her uniform. She also looked much calmer and was clean, the dirt and grime of the dungeon washed from her. The guard Canzí was with frowned. "Canzí, she said her name was Canzí," he said. Canzí blushed. Cara rolled her eyes. "For goodness sake, it's just a nickname." "These are odd times, Cara. We need to be careful about whom we can trust," he said. "You can trust her?" Cara frowned. "At least, I think you can. She might have been trying to get information from me." Canzí looked up and shook her head, smiling a little. He narrowed her eyes. "She's a royalist?" Cara shook her head. "She ain't Soledo. She's one of the Queen's soldiers," she said. Canzí blushed and flinched away from the guard's glare. Cara's tone warmed. "She was kind to me, though. She brought me food, kept me from going mad, and possibly saved my son's lives." Cara remembered how Canzí had cried when she saw what happened to her hair. "If she's a soldier, then does she support the Jarissa King?" the other guard asked. Canzí shook her head indignantly. "I think she's telling the truth. She's a good girl, and she's brave. She wouldn't support a man like that," Cara said. Canzí nodded. Cara's tone darkened a little. "She reads in the dungeon, I can tell. She's wearing something under that dress, too." Canzí nodded. She remembered something and dug around in her pockets. She pulled out the hairpins Vericica had given her. The guard with her took them and frowned. "These came from one of us." He looked back at Canzí, suspicious. "Oh, Verzi," Canzí mumbled. She winced and shook her head. "Veria, no, Ria, no." She blushed and wished she could disappear again. Her mouth felt dry. How did northern diminutives work again? Something with a C sound. "She means Vericica," Cara said. Canzí looked at her gratefully, nodding and smiling. "She's the only one of us still there, and they were friendly, I think," Cara said. She looked at Canzí. "She all right?" Canzí nodded. "I think so. Been a few days, though." She smiled. "Good." The guard looked skeptical. "The niece of the Lady Soledo made friends with the royalist Borgia?" Canzí stiffened, and Cara gave him a stern look. "Don't call her that." "And yes, she did. Now haven't you better things to do than insulting and scaring this poor girl?" He sighed, and the guards looked at each other. "Fine," he said. "You two can talk out here, but I don't want her coming inside." "All right," Cara said. Canzí nodded. They walked away so they could talk privately. Cara sighed. "The sooner we get back to Carvino, the better. I thought it'd be nice living in a Soledo town, but my goodness, they're so stiff here. I swear, if an angel appeared to them in his true form, they'd question him." Canzí smiled. "They'd wrestle him like a Gitlelo," the father of the Adelcite nation, who wrestled an angel at one point. There was a song about it. His name meant "struggle with beyond," and was an apt description of the nation he fathered, who, in Adelcite, shared his name. Cara chuckled. She did not think that sounded very Soledo-like, but she decided not to say that. She looked at Canzí apologetically. "I'm sorry he said that to you," she said. Canzí shook her head, still smiling. "It's fine. I've been called that plenty of times," she said. Cara looked at her. "That don't make it better." Canzí sighed. I know. She looked up and smiled again. You look better. I'm glad. Cara nodded. I am. She remembered the last time Canzí had said those words to her, the first time Canzí had visited Cara after she had been unchained. Also the first time Cara was polite to her. Canzí nodded to Ivelosso. Your children are born? She hesitated. I thought there were two. Where's the other one? He's with his bobble, she said. I think they might be starting to accept that Maba can't do everything. So they're both boys? Canzí asked. Ivazebo and Luchon? She had asked Cara what she wanted to name her children during one of her visits. Cara nodded. We've been calling them Ivelosso and Luch. Canzí looked at Ivelosso. He don't look very big. He, Luch? Cara shook her head, smiling. No, this one's Ivelosso. And yes, Luchakiso is a big baby. He was a nightmare to get out. Canzí smiled. If it stays like that, he's gonna hate that when he gets older. Ah, we will, Cara said, chuckling. I don't think you'll be the last one to make that mistake. Canzí shook her head. She looked at Ivelosso, then back up at Cara, looking almost like a little girl. Can I hold him? Cara nodded. If he lets you. She tried to pass Ivelosso to her, but he started crying and she took him back, chuckling. Babies. When his sister Sidakisa was this age, you'd have thought the world was ending when I let go of her. She's still like that, actually. You should see the look on her face when she sees me holding one of her brothers instead of her. She hasn't quite accepted that she ain't the baby of the family no more. Cara smiled. She reminds me a little of myself after Kesha was born, except she gets sad and I got angry. Canzí frowned. Kesha? Why don't you call her Keshgizma? She blushed. Keshakisa. Sorry. It's all right. Kara's expression became serious, a little sad. I haven't called her that in a long time. She lost that right after what happened at my wedding. Canzí looked up. What happened? Her expression darkened. Don't ask. There was a pause, and then Cara looked up. So, why'd you come here? I mean, haven't you a family you want to see? Canzí blushed. Well, Vericica told me where she thought you were, it was on the way, and I wanted to check on you, so I decided to come here. Cara stopped, frowning. Vericica told you where we are? Canzí blinked. Yes? Why? That bad? Cara thought for a moment. I think it's about time we left this town. Got to baptize the boys, and I'm sure the others have been missing us on the farm. She looked up suddenly, remembering something. Oh, I wanted to ask you. You want to be Lushakiso's godmother? Canzí gasped. His godmother? Really? Cara nodded. Fiasishal spent the past 9 years asking if we can use his friend as a godfather, but we haven't because we couldn't find no one to pair him with. Maybe that could be you. Canzí blinked, then smiled. Yes, maybe it could. She frowned. I mean, yes, I'll do it. Cara smiled. Thank you, Canzí. I'll have to talk about this with my husband, but I'm sure he'll agree. She sighed. Oh, that means I'll have to get you inside. Can't you bring him outside? Canzí asked. She nodded. I could, but I want you to stay with us until they're baptized, and I ain't sure we'll be able to get to Carvino if we leave now. Might as well get this over with. After several minutes, much arguing, and a few more instances of Canzí being called a rude name, they finally managed to get inside. They met with Fieso, who was standing nearby and holding Luch. Cida was standing next to him, trying to get hold of one of his arms. He smiled when he saw them. Get on your back, Jarissa, he said. He looked at Canzí. So I'm guessing you'll, Boredagas? He asked. She nodded. Cida looked up, frowning. What's a Boredagas, Bobo? That a Bornia? Canzí blinked. Cida's parents stared at her with wide eyes, then looked at each other. Who taught her that? Fieso shook his head. Well, I don't know. His voice had gone up at least an octave. Cara sighed and shifted Ivelosso in her arms, crouching so she could be at eye level with Cida and putting one hand on her shoulder. Cida Kisa, I don't never want to hear you say that, she said, her tone grave. Cida blinked and pointed at the town guards. But I was saying it, she said. Was he now? Cara said, looking over at him. I think we're going to have a talk about that later. She looked back at Cida. Now that's quite a bad word. One of the worst. When you call a bride that, it makes them feel like you would if someone called you the s word, the word, or the r word. Like sir, she just made the first sound of the words since she did not know how they were spelled. Cida gasped, her eyes going wide and filling with tears. Is it? She said. Cara nodded. She felt a little guilty about almost making her daughter cry, but she needed to learn this word was bad. Cida looked up at Cara. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was a bad word. Mama says you're a nice lady, and I don't want to make you sad. Canzí nodded, smiling. I know, it's fine. Cida brightened. All right. She ran off to find Lisa and Ferron. Cara sighed and stood. Oh, I'm sorry about that, she said to Canzí. Canzí shook her head. Really, it's fine. I know she didn't mean it. So, you're Canzí? Fieso asked. The girl who visited me and made Jarissa stop thinking that all Silendars are the same as the children back home who used to bully us? Canzí blinked. Facetious, Cara said, smiling. He smiled too. Well, it's why you thought that. Cara nodded. You're right, but still. Canzí was unsure of whether or not she should answer Fieso's original question until he repeated it. Yes, I am. I'm Canzí, she said. He smiled. That's just about the most berating name I've ever had. Not that there's something wrong with that. And I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but you didn't give your name when we were in the dungeon, so until Jarissa told me what it was, I was calling you La Borredagas. I hope that ain't rude. Canzí blushed. I didn't? He shook his head. No. Oh, well, I've heard. And it's fine. She smiled. Y'all are good people. Cara laughed. You're too nice, Canzí. Didn't you hear me when we first met? The things I said to you? There's a reason I said are, Canzí said. So, why'd Jarissa go through so much trouble to get you inside? Fieso asked. I think I finally found someone to pat easel with, Cara said. He looked at her. You want her to be Lushakiso's godmother? She nodded and he grinned. Finally! I said I could be back when we were children, and I've always hated that I couldn't do it. Course, he made the same promise, and I'm still waiting for him to get a wife, but still. Cara nodded, smiling. I know. Didn't you say that you thought there was a girl he's been seeing? Fieso nodded. Yes, but I ain't sure. It's just how we kept going to Soledo, and someone had to be cooking when I dropped the girls off. So, do you think we should go back to Carvinho and baptize the boys? Fieso glanced at Canzí. I'm sure this girl has a family she wants to get back to. Canzí nodded. I think we should, Cara said. Besides, I'm getting tired of this. I want to go back home. Fieso smiled. If I remember right, you were quite happy when we figured this part out. He mimicked her voice to an almost eerie degree. Finally, we'll be living in a proper Soledo town instead of that common village, he said. Canzí blinked. Facetious, Cara said, smiling. Well, you did say that, or something like it, he said in his own voice. So, when should we leave? Cara looked up. It's around Mandamani. Takes about a day to get back to Carvinho. He nodded. Let's go tomorrow. She turned to Canzí. Do you want to stay with us tonight? I'm sure you want a decent meal and a real bed to stay in, not to mention a bath. It's 3 days to get here walking, and I know what sleeping and eating down there's like, and they were treating me better. Fieso nodded. It ain't good. Canzí smiled. Thank you. Y'all have been kind to me, and she looked down, remembering how she had led Cara to her cell. I don't really deserve it. Cara laughed. Really, Canzí, you're too nice. I'm the one who didn't deserve your kindness. I ain't saying you should have been treating me like Vericica or Ivelosso did, but I was so rude to you. But even so, you were nice to me. You didn't help me escape, but you treated me like a person, like your friend. Well, Canzí said, feeling a little embarrassed. Why, are taught to love our enemies. Cara's smile warmed. And you've certainly done that. Her expression became thoughtful. It's a little funny, really. We all agree that what the Queen did to me was bad, but if she hadn't, I would never have seen that how I thought about Silenda was wrong. Cida's voice reached their ears. My mother said you ain't allowed to say that word. She was trying to give the ruder of the town guards a stern look. It looked comical. Fieso and Cara both ran after her. Cida, they called. Canzí chuckled. Vericica, what did you do? Fieso called. It weren't me this time, Veron said. Lisa made a comment about Canzí's accent at dinner, which her parents chastised her for. Cida stated very clearly and proudly that saying a word that sounded like Borneo was a very bad thing to do. She did say a word that sounds like Borneo. Lisa asked a clarifying question that did use the word, which got her scolded by her parents, who again wondered who had taught their daughters that word. Veron swore it was not him. The next day, Cara and Vericica's families left for Carvinho. Izo, Farella, and Ezo and their children were very happy to see them again, and Simpa was happy to meet them. Cara and Fieso were happy that Izo had finally found a wife. He had wanted to ask them to come to his wedding, but was not sure where to find him, which was why he had asked the children not to tell him he was getting married. Izo, Farella, and Ezo were very happy to have their friend back, relieved at Cara's change in character, even happier when they saw the babies, though disappointed they had not been able to be there while Cara was carrying them. Fieso joked it was revenge for Izo not telling him about his wedding, and Izo was overjoyed when they asked him to be Ilusha's godfather. Canzí, being Canzí, tried to convince them that Simpa should take the title of godmother instead of her, but since no one else, including Simpa, agreed with her, she gave up. The babies were baptized on the eve of Jarisse, with Miro and Vericica as Ivelosso's godparents and Izo and Canzí as Lucia's. Afterward, Miro and Vericica went back to Misevino, and Canzí stayed until Jarisse Day was over, and then went to look for her family. Vericica. Vericica stiffened at the sound of her real name and the voice that said it. Filthy, she was right, she thought. I heard you were here, but honestly didn't believe it. Vericica sighed and crossed her arms, turning to face Vericica. I can't believe she was right, Vericica said. Oh, so dear Jarissa told you about me? It's really too bad she left. I was looking forward to seeing her again. A proper reunion, not that little talk we had in the dungeon. Anyway, she said, her tone becoming thoughtful, what's a loyalist like you doing here? Because things were not confusing enough, loyalist could now also mean someone who supported the Queen instead of Garento. I don't support the Queen. Never did. First, I supported Quinia. Now, I fight for the true king. Vericica hoped that not using Lady Quinia's title or acknowledging their connection would help sell her lie, especially since most Soledo, including her, hated it when people did not call Lady Quinia by her title. Vericica laughed. Do you expect me to believe that? If there's one thing I know about you, it's that you'd rather die than let something happen to your Madica or the Quinia. Then why'd I support Quinia? Why didn't I stay neutral? Vericica tried not to let her nervousness show. Well, for one thing, she's your Madika. And for another, if she won, the last thing she'd do is make la Briesha Sika into la Resha Sika. If Silenda won, she chuckled. Well, it wouldn't be pretty. Vericica tried to keep her face neutral, despite her annoyance. That was exactly why she had supported Lady Ina. Well, no matter who I supported in the war, I support the true king now. Vericica laughed. Come now, Vericica, you really think I'm gonna believe that? Moment he gets his hands on Silenda and her husband, he'll kill him. And he'll probably not be quite kind to your dear Madikaina neither if she don't respond soon, Vericica continued. Vericica sighed and crossed her arms. What do you want, Jarissa? Vericica stiffened. One, for you not to call me Jarissa. That girl is dead. Her tone was dark. How about Gesha, then? Vericica said, smiling a little. Down with her! Vericica snapped. She collected herself. As for the other, she said in a lighter tone, chuckling and putting an arm around Vericica as if they were old friends. The girl stiffened. You're a clever girl, Vericica. I think you already know that. Vericica's grip tightened. I want you to come with me. Vericica tried to fight her grip, but Vericica just chuckled and pointed her knife at the girl's throat. Oh, no, you ain't getting away that easily. Or at all, really. Her tone became thoughtful. I think I'm gonna put you in the same place you just helped that parading girl out of. She smiled a little. Funnily enough, that's also where dear Carakisa was. Vericica stiffened. Oh, yes, I know about that parading girl. Thought you might try to let her out. And how great that you just went and said your real name! Not to mention the fact Boss Spars told me you were wearing that scarf right up until we showed up. Vericica laughed. Really, it's like you were doing our job for us. Honestly, might have sold you out to the Queen if it weren't for the fact that getting my sister arrested is just too good a thing to pass up. She looked up. Rilesaria! A slight and almost comically short girl, about midway between Lisco and Elinsco Siko's heights, came out. Like all of Vericica's Soledo, she wore red and black Soledo armor and the mask. What is it, Vericica? She asked. She had a Baradan accent. Vericica shook Vericica, who glared at her. I'll call this a spa. I want you to have a look up. Rileza Aria looked down like she was frowning. Were all spas? I know that, Vericica said, a little annoyed. One of Iñas. Vericica looked up sharply. Lady! She was cut off by Vericica kicking her. Rileza Aria nodded and took one of Vericica's arms. Vericica took the other, keeping her knife at her prisoner's throat. With the knife so close to her, Vericica could not try to fight them. She settled for glaring at Rileza Aria. Traitor, she spat. Do you know what that man did to us? We were almost wiped out because of him. Vericica kicked her. A pointless war started just 'cause he was trying to help. You're the only traitor here, Vericica. Her tone darkened. Now stop talking, or I'll start cutting. Vericica fell silent, but glared at her. Rileza Aria finally spoke. Besides, he didn't get Barida, she said. They dragged her down, and Vericica opened the door to what used to be Canzí's, and, before that, Cara's cell. Vericica tried to take the opportunity to fight them, but Vericica's grip did not loosen, and Rileza Aria was stronger than she looked. They threw her inside. Vericica tried to get to her feet and run, but Vericica seized her wrist and locked one of the chains around it. Still running, Vericica pulled the chain taut and fell on her back. Vericica stood over her, chuckling, then dragged her over to the wall. She chained her other hand, while Rileza Aria set to work on her feet. Vericica hoped they would leave her hair alone. both because of cultural reasons and because it held her hairpins. She was wrong. Once her hands were bound, Vericica reached for her kerchief and hair. Vericica jerked away sharply, drawing one of her knives. "Don't you dare touch that!" she growled, glaring at her. Vericica looked at the knife, then back at Vericica. "When you've more vows in your eye, I already made that mistake with Vila. I ain't making it again." Vericica wanted to ask about Vila, but it was not time. Vericica glared at her, keeping her knife drawn. Rileza Aria grabbed hold of her wrist and wrestled the knife from her grip, then held her down as Vericica ripped off her kerchief and tore out her hairpins. Vericica fought, but could not stop them. They stood. Vericica kept glaring, but she looked shaken. She was struggling not to cry. Well, not as bad as if she were married or a nun, to take off her kerchief and loosen her hair was still a terrible thing. Her mind seemed to be screaming. Vericica looked at Rileza Aria. "Go find Lord Ivelosso," she said. Rileza Aria nodded and left. Vericica watched Vericica, trying to think of a way out and trying not to think of all the terrible things the woman could do. Instead, she examined the lock of her chains. It was not too complicated. She could probably pick it easily with the right tools. The right tools that had been taken from her. She suppressed a sigh. She could break the lock, but the sound would get her caught. Besides, she would still have to figure out how to get the door to her cell open. Perhaps she could break the locks to her chains, wait for the guards to come running, and hopefully fight and defeat them. But she doubted she would be able to get all of them broken before someone heard and arrived, and then fighting armed and armored guards would be difficult. She understood how Cara and Canzí must have felt. She hated it, feeling so helpless and hopeless, at the mercy of this cruel woman. It was frustrating. She wished she had something to take her anger out on. Rileza Aria returned a few minutes later, followed by Lord Ivelosso, who looked curious and a little annoyed. The moment he saw Vericica, his previous emotions evaporated and his face twisted into a snarl. "You!" He threw open the door to Vericica's cell and stormed in, his eyes blazing with fury. "You killed Foligno!" Vericica blinked and stood, trying to ignore the weight and sound of her chains and the feeling of her hair touching her ears. "Who?" "You killed my brother, Foligno!" Vericica frowned. "Your brother was hungry?" Foligno was just a masculine adjective meaning hungry. "No! His name was Foligno." His patience was wearing thin. Several other prisoners began to ask Lord Ivelosso to pass on a greeting from them to Foligno, introducing them by their paternal title, but they were cut off by Lord Ivelosso barking at them. "Foligno is dead, you fools!" Vericica was surprised. Lord Ivelosso was not usually so transparent with his anger. He conducted himself with the dignity befitting someone of his status. Vericica finally realized who he was talking about. She paled, reaching up to touch her scarf, but remembering she was not wearing it. The Roseno and Southern Ocean, a little before Via Silenda retired. That was... Lord Ivelosso nodded. "Foligno. Lord Foligno, really, my younger brother." He glared at her again. "And you killed him." "That was my job!" Vericica blinked incredulously. "What?" "You've siblings?" Vericica said. Vericica shook her head. "Thought not. Trust me, this is normal," she said. Vericica did not trust her. At all. Especially not her standards on what was and was not normal sibling behavior. Or normal behavior in general. "Especially for nobles," Vericica continued. Lord Ivelosso nodded. "I was planning on killing him, of course. He had already given me some airs, and really had become a threat." Vericica frowned. "Then, shouldn't you thank me?" she asked. "You don't get it," Vericica said. "No one's allowed to add and kill our siblings except us." "Really, it is a good thing you have ended up here," Lord Ivelosso said as he approached Vericica. She took a step back, her eyes rounding slightly. He tilted her head up, forcing her to look at him. She tried to set her face in a more confident expression. "I will watch every minute of what Athira and my Rosene do to you, and mark my words, girl, I will enjoy it, he said, his voice low and his tone dark. Vericica glared up at him, trying to look defiant when all she felt was fear. How was she going to get him out of this? She knew Lady Quinia would be adamant about her return, but she would not be given up for free. What price would they ask for? Would Lady Quinia be able to pay it? Vericica was just as enthusiastic with Vericica as she had been with Longueseur. As she did with most of her prisoners, she cut her palms and the soles of her feet. And the dungeon was not a very convenient place to be injured, especially since her shoes and socks were taken as well. Vericica knew that part of the reason for her injuries was that they would get infected and make it much harder for her to escape. She also knew that Garinto would not approve of it, if he ever found out. Nevertheless, she tried. Vericica had missed one of her lockpicks, but it was a little inconveniently placed. Ignoring the pain in her hands, she picked the locks to her chains and then to the door of her cell. Now, with her feet injured and infected, it made her not just slower, but louder as well, and her missing shoes did not help. She was caught and dragged back to her cell, despite her efforts. They adjusted her chains to just about the tightest they could go, leaving her barely able to lift her arms from the wall, and then left to find Vericica, after some hesitation. So you really tried it. Vericica looked up at Vericica as she entered, trying to glare. Well, I wasn't just going to stay here, Vericica responded. Vericica considered this. You're brave, Vericica. I'll give you that. But I think it was Lord Ivelosso who told the Jarissa King that there's quite a thin line between bravery and stupidity. She looked up, thoughtful. Now, what to do with you? I can't just let you get away with this. Vericica narrowed her eyes. Why not leave me like this? Or better yet, put me on display like that Beratin boy. Vericica laughed. You think too small. No, I think I'll do that first one, but that can't be it. Haven't you done enough already? Vericica shook her head. Oh, Vericica, there ain't no such thing as enough. She thought again. Well, now, there's an idea. Vericica stiffened at her tone, fear finally showing on her face. Vericica laughed. Oh, this'll be fun, she said as she came forward, almost skipping in her excitement, knife in hand. I really should thank you, Vericica. She grabbed a fistful of hair and dragged her up by it. Vericica gasped, both in pain and fear, sweat breaking out on her brow. You've been a fun prisoner. I hope it don't stop with this, Vericica said. Vericica could feel the cold of the knife against her scalp. Her eyes went as wide as the moon's, and panic threatened to overwhelm her. Vericica could not do this to her. It was almost too terrible an action to comprehend. Slowly, almost painfully slowly, Vericica dragged the knife across Vericica's scalp, cutting her hair. Vericica screamed, thrashing against Vericica and her chains. Vericica only laughed. She cut faster now, her movements rough and jerky. Vericica's thrashing only meant that part of her scalp was taken along with her hair, and the only thing that screamed louder than her body was her mind. Though at the same time, it seemed to be going dark, deciding to block everything out rather than deal with what was happening. Finally, almost all of Vericica's hair and part of her scalp littered the floor around her and Vericica, like a blonde carpet. Vericica stepped back, admiring her handiwork. Vericica had stopped screaming, but was shaking and struggling not to cry. She would not cry in front of Vericica. Vericica was walking around, searching for something. Eventually she shrugged and went back to Vericica. The girl pulled away from her, pressing herself against the wall. Vericica just chuckled. Then she seized her right hand and pressed it against the wall. Vericica gasped, but barely had time to wince before her face contorted in pain as Vericica slammed the handle of her knife into first the fingers, then the hand itself. Again, Vericica screamed, in pain this time, rather than horror. She screamed until her throat burned and her voice gave out. Once the sounds of screaming and breaking bones faded, Vericica stared down, shaking and trying not to cry or look at her hair. Vericica crouched in front of her and tilted her head up. Have you learned your lesson? Vericica asked. Vericica glared at her and spat in her face. Vericica only chuckled and tried her mask with her sleeve. Did your mother teach you to act like that? I'd have thought she'd teach you how to act all proper and respectable, she said. But you're still defiant after all that, after I've stripped your dignity from you, she continued. Keep it up. I love prisoners like this. You're so much more fun this way. Vericica stood, looking thoughtful. I wonder what I'll do if you try this again. Maybe you'll cut off your foot. That's what we did when the Soledo tried to escape. Maybe you'll break your other hand, or just cut it off. She laughed. Imagine that. You and the monk's boy, and the Jarissa King, and that mage boy, all without a hand. Vericica made note of that. The Jarissa lost his hand. She wondered who the monk's boy was, but could not ask. Maybe I'll cut out your tongue, she suggested suddenly. What good is the Lady Soledo if she can't talk? Vericica stiffened at that, her eyes going wide with fear. Vericica laughed. Ah, well, we'll deal with that when it comes. She gathered up most of Vericica's hair and began to walk away, but turned back to her just before leaving. Oh, don't worry, dear girl. We'll let your Madika come after you, just as soon as we're good and ready. The moment Vericica was gone, Vericica burst into tears.